Hi, everyone. My name is Professor Blythe George. I'm an assistant professor in sociology. I'm so sorry I can't be there in person today. I'm very excited to know that you guys are learning about health disparities in tribal communities, and I would be there in person if I weren't currently in the field. Today, I'm actually on my way back from the Rolling Loud Festival in Los Angeles. I'm studying music festivals, and liminal spaces. So, wish me luck. I'm hoping I've had a good time and gotten some good data by the time you're seeing this. Just briefly, to introduce myself, uh, like I said, I'm a professor on campus. I am a member of the Yurok tribe, which is the largest tribe in the state of California. We are about 6,000 members, and we are located about 6 to 7 hours north of here along the Klamath River. I grew up off reservation, as most tribal members do, in our South District, McKinleyville, California. I am a proud graduate of Dartmouth College. Go Big Green, and I studied sociology there. So I've been doing this for a minute now, and I am also a sociology, social policy PhD from Harvard. But if we ever play, I sit on the green side when it comes to football. Um, but in either case, I went very far away from home to get certain credentials so that when I spoke about my community, people listened and they were hopefully, I was hoping if I was in a position to be able to impact positive interventions in my community, that is what I wanted my degree to do. And so I'm happy to say I'm doing that now, but it's really hard to say that it's on a topic that's really difficult to talk about, but is very important to bring attention to. So I'm going to share a little bit more about my work on missing and murdered Indigenous peoples as a public health crisis. I know you guys have learned about it in little ways, I'm sure, up until now, but if I can take a couple minutes to give you my take, I will do so. Now, it's very hard to acknowledge that as a tribal woman, no matter my degrees, no matter the places I've gone, the things I've seen, all that I've done and worked to accomplish for myself and my people, that I am arguably just as likely to die from homicide than I am any other leading cause of death. Homicide is the third leading cause of death for tribal women, and that is often a reflection of serious violence. So, in my work, when I look at the missing and murdered Indigenous peoples epidemic, it is with a very real recognition that this is in many ways the result of a system by design, that as life givers, as the physical embodiment for many of us in our cultures, our women were seen as the physical embodiment of the land itself, and the land was central to how we saw ourselves as indigenous worldviews, the world round, right? We center the land and our ties to it, and so obviously our women and our two spirit relatives too, for their capacity to hold that sacred energy, that was a place of deep importance in our communities. And it was also then a place where the colonizer really set their target to conquer the land. They had to conquer us. And, obviously, here being a Yurok woman in the 21st century, I am in no ways conquered, and I'm the direct reflection of people who withstood that. But we are also genocide survivors, and that lives in our DNA. It has accumulated over time. It shows up in a whole host of health concerns. And, it's hard to always have to be the person with the hard stuff to talk about. I've said hard a lot. This is the first take. But we're always at the top of the list if it's a bad thing, and the bottom of the list if it's a good thing. And time and again, if they include us, right? There's huge limitations on the data and the data sets that actually incorporate us as a population. But we do know in the instances where we do track data that we are disproportionately experiencing violence across the life course, and our women are especially taking the brunt of this, even though we know that our male-bodied relatives are also severely impacted by violence. And actually, when it comes to our interactions with law enforcement, it is a double bind of sorts that our men are the most likely to be killed by police, while their partners, their loved ones, are also the least likely to ever have any justice if harm comes to them. It is most likely that their case will go unsolved and that there will never be any kind of closure in that legal sense. Uh, in my own work, have really been called to answer a question that I read in a book, Thomas Buckley's Standing Ground, about Yurok spirituality, where an elder had kind of sat through this whole presentation about demographics on our tribe. And she stood up and she said, "You've shown me how we are dying. Can you tell me how we are living?" And that is a huge reorientation and like paradigm shift when it comes to how we conceive of data, what matters and why. And that is in my work, I try to completely reframe that. In some ways it's been called a strengths-based perspective, but I also just think it's, for example, when by the time we're talking to law enforcement, in my opinion, it's much too late. Actually, we should be asking ourselves, how many times could we have been, could, we should be asking ourselves, how many times could we have kept them safe? What turning points alternatively decrease or increase one's chances of becoming an MMIP case? These are questions that are obviously super relevant for my research. I'm right now embarking on answering these. When I'm not studying musical festivals, I more often than not am studying missing and murdered. Um, can't blame me for wanting to go to study a festival, right? Um, but there is an expectation that law enforcement and criminal justice will intervene in a process that actually starts well before then. And I have lost loved ones to this epidemic. Someone I looked up to my whole life was taken from us in October 2021. She's still missing. Emily Rissling, her name, it has been heard the world round, as far away as France. They wrote an article in the French magazine Society about her disappearance. And to know that a woman I've looked up to since I was a high school student, pictures of that Blythe on the wall in this room here. Um, she was deeply loved, deeply protected. There was no one who knew more about our ceremonies, who walked with more love and relatives in every direction, and even she wasn't safe. And so for me, I can't help but see myself and women I've loved in the data, because that's actually a factual statement. And that's the case with much of this in Indian country. Many of the people on the front lines are very rarely one or two people removed from an active case. And I think in some ways that is really the weight of healing generations, of being targeted as a life giver, that you are tasked simultaneously with keeping yourself safe because you know you are targeted, but then and hunted almost. But hopefully you're not sacrificing life in the moment. And that's a talk for another day. I really welcome, if you want to talk about this more when it comes to the things that we sacrifice thinking it will keep us safe, but then in all actuality, it might just be limiting our ability to be in the present, and like to think of all the things that we sacrifice as tribal people, to think that we don't just get to live and be happy because we're always worried about being hurt. That's a heavy burden. And so in my work, I try to temper what I know personally with what I'm learning, but it's also hugely relevant, experiential knowledge. And so I was hoping to kind of give you guys a primer on the subject that's really too much to cover in just a couple minutes, but this is what I'd want you to know if I had just a few minutes. Uh, Please never stop the conversation with how we're dying, though, and to think of us as living, to think of us as vibrant people who have access to actually deep lessons and arguably, I think, the knowledge that will save all of us on a global sense. But we're sick, and we have been for a long time, and the missing and murdered epidemic is a very real public public health reflection of that accumulation. But we don't just inherit the trauma, we inherit the strength, the resilience, and the teachings that come with our lineage. And so as a York woman, I'm just very proud to be in this position to share this info with you. And thank you again for the chance to pop in, and I hope you guys have an awesome rest of lecture. Bye.